Gahena makes her way out onto the street, her temporary rucksack packed with just the essentials that she might need for a journey. Certainly enough for now. They're not skimping on supplies, but it's a long journey ahead and supplies should hold out so long as she is careful. Following behind comes Naomi and her faithful dog, Zanita. Naomi asks, what is she doing? Does she honestly think that this is going to work? How do we even know that we can trust these people? They're all strangers. Gahena just single-mindedly keeps going. She knows that this is the only way that herself and Naomi will find a place of rest, a safe place. But Naomi keeps on. Look, these people, they're crazy. They tried to kill us only last night. Do you honestly expect them to not betray you later? In the end, Gahena has to turn around and just say, look, old woman, mere hours ago you were saying that I could abandon you, that you didn't need me to stay with you anymore. Well, now I'm going and you're saying that, what, you want me to stay? I'm confused. What do you want me to do? This is our only chance. This is our only hope to settle down. If I can go north, if I can go to this Raven's Rest place where this accident has occurred, then maybe, just maybe, we might be able to get through this week and maybe into a life beyond. I have to try. I don't know what goes through Naomi's head. She looks at her daughter-in-law, her eyes blank. She hasn't really felt any true emotion since her son's died, since Gahena's husband has died. And Gahena just doesn't know what else to say. She has received nothing but the success of her own making. Naomi, she's been no help, but can you blame her? This village hates her, and worse than that, all of her entreaties, all her prayers to Abba, the Ironsworn god of virtue and goodness, has come back with nothing. Nothing. As blank and as bitter as the eyes of her mother-in-law. But then she speaks. I don't know why you stay, but I know that you do it because you think it is right. And I don't know why going to the north or how it could help. But I know that you're doing it because you think it is right. Zanita, the big dog that belongs to Naomi, that's one of the few other living creatures that survived the attack in the deep wildwood, comes trotting across. Zanita, you go with Miss. Zanita, you protect Miss. Zanita looks at Naomi, then Zanita looks over at Gahena with the same blank dog stare, panting. Good. And with that, Naomi turns and leaves. Zanita stays with Gahena. Gahena, never quite sure what to do with Zanita, but realizes that this is the only good luck she's going to get as she heads north in the Ironlands. Hello, my name is Evan. I am playing Ironsworn by Shaun Tomkin, the free version. I'm playing just, this game. A bit of a clearing the head. They've got other campaigns I'm just trying to get through, but this is just sort of a little palette cleanser. We've got ourselves Gahena. She's trying to basically find a new life for herself and specifically Naomi. That's a oath she's sworn, a big quest. She also just has to pay the innkeeper at the end of this week in order to survive. But we may have found a way of doing that. The town of Elderwatch, I'm pretty sure it's called Elderwatch, they have told Gahena that they're willing to help her if she helps them. She goes north to a place called Raven's Rest. Can't say that word right. The dragon without the little arms. Goes there and helps with an accident. A landslide has occurred. If she goes there and helps, then maybe they'll help her. That's where we're at this point in the story. So we're going to be going on a bit of a journey, which is kind of the main bread and butter of Ironsworn, which I didn't think I'd actually have to be doing. I didn't really intend for her to be going on quests and being an adventurer. I wanted to stay in Elderwatch. But no, here we are. Ironsworn decreed that we are going north to help out. Which is why I kind of didn't roll to find out if Zanita, the dog of Naomi, would come with us. Because basically, Gahena, our main character, doesn't really have any fighting skills. So that's why Zanita can't come with us. Zanita is the only weapon that Gahena really has. So let's see what happens. We're going to be going north, get comfortable, get something tasty to enjoy, and let's get going. So with her bag of supplies, we do have full supply 5 at the start of this sort of little quest, so she's well stocked. Gahena heads to the north of the town. The town is a small little Anglo-Saxon, I'm thinking even pushing it further back, sort of like a Celtic Iron Age type thing going on. Big round houses with a thatch. That's not too far gone from the types of buildings we've described so far. But she heads to the north of this little market town. There's no real walls here. And as she arrives to the north of the town, she is going to look around and see if she can find if anyone else is travelling north. Like I said, it's been an accident, so most people have come this way. Is anyone going north to go continue the search effort? Maybe trading party? So what we'll do is just try and secure some advantage, basically. So I'm going to roll her heart stats. She does indeed learn that there are some people heading north, but they're not really a proper caravan. They're just people who are rushing supplies together. More or less, there's no wagon going north. These are just maybe like a band of volunteers who've just grabbed stuff like their rucksacks and lots of stuff. And they're sort of like, oh yes, you can come with us, I suppose. We can sort of head north if you must. Like I said, they're a band of volunteers. Let's find out though who's this person she's talking to. She's been pointed in the direction by like some of the other families. Oh yes, go talk to those young men over there. We'll find out if they're a man or not. We'll figure out who this leader of this band of volunteers is who's going north. So this person going north is normally an artisan, so we're going to say like a pot maker or something like that. A little artistry to them. So we're going to go with some cliches here. They're not like a huge, stout blacksmith. They're sort of like more lean and build, a bit more wiry. Maybe that's why they didn't go north in the first place, to help clean this road. They were staying back in the town, just, you know, getting pots and stuff like that, all good to go. We know that the character's goal is to go north and just help people up there deal with this problem. They on the whole are a fairly cheery type person disposition. Oh, that's interesting. They're fairly cheery. Their name is Tristan. We'll go with Tristan. And Tristan sounds a bit male. Why not? We're going to try to steer clear of any sort of love interest story, just so you're aware. Just too cliche, you know what I mean? But Tristan is this artisan. He's fairly cheery. He's like, oh, you're the elf girl. You're the one that's in front of the whole town. I can't believe you did that. I mean, I was worried that you were just going to stand in some of the blood at that ceremony. My goodness. Yes, we're going north. We're going north. We're going to go north. We're going to go help. What's going on is a nightmare. It's horrible. It's terrible. But we can do something about that. We can go north and we can see to it that this place is set right and we can bring home as many people as possible. So there you go, a cheery person in the Ironlands. You never really meet them too often, but Tristan, nonetheless, his pluck, his gumption, he's inspired a few other people in the town to go north to help in the rescue effort. And now Gahena is joining this party. When I say joining, they're not like a coherent team. It's more like these are like-minded volunteers. They're going north. They happen to be going the same direction. That's kind of the idea. Okay, so the group undertake a journey. So we're going to be going on a journey. We're going to be doing the undertake journey rolls on Ironsworn. So we're going to say it's a dangerous journey. So basically every time we successfully move through the countryside, we'll be marking off 2 marks on the journey track. Well, this is a bit of my own little house rule thing. I like to imagine that basically each of these undertake journeys, successful or not, is basically the equivalent of like a march. The idea that they've travelled for somewhere between, you know, like 6 and 10 hours at a time, or maybe 6 and 8 hours at a time. And if it's successful, they get somewhere. If they're not successful, more or less, it all gets washed out for some reason on that march of the journey. Which means every now and again they will need to stop and rest and resupply depending on how efficient their journey is. So let's get moving. She doesn't have a bond herself, but she can roll her wits against this. So off they go to the north. Oh, it's not a good start. Look, it's a complete miss, but I really don't want to miss on the first step on this journey. So I am actually going to, I can't believe this, I'm going to burn some momentum. We're back down to 2 in order to turn this into a weak hit. So they make their first journey forwards. They suffer 1 supply as they go. They're crossing the countryside. So they're going from the havens up north to the hinterland. So at the moment, as they leave the town, they primarily cross just sort of farmland. There's a lot of farmland immediately around these settlements. There has to be to support the town. So as she moves north, there's no one really in the fields. Again, this disaster has brought all the town together at the moment. They'll probably head back out in the next day or 2. But as they head north, they mainly pass through countryside and land that's half ploughed. They get to the northern extremity after a couple of hours of all this farmland and wooded normal area. Let's roll again. As they go further north, this countryside is relatively tame. Now when I say tame, I mean that it's not now cultivated with farmlands, but nonetheless rolling hills, and the forests are kind of bunched into glens. This is the landscape of farmers as well, shepherds. So they're wandering around, keeping the grass fields in pretty good nick. They might do a little bit of burning in order to sort of like push back some of the forest to make nice open grassland so their sheep can graze on it. In fact, maybe even they passed a few flocks and a few shepherds. These people are right out on the fringe of society. They may not even have heard of the disaster that happened north. They're just being shepherds up there. As they're going north, they're already getting close to halfway through their journey. We're down to 3 supply. So what I think I might do is, we've done 2 marches, not very successfully. We're going to settle down to try and resupply. So we're going to say as they resupply, basically, like I said, the shepherds around. So maybe they go and actually go talk to one of these blokes and see if they've got a stash somewhere, see if they're willing to do a little barter, maybe get some little bit of niceness. They tell them the news about the disaster. Oh, and an old mate, Tristan comes up. I need to write down Tristan's name. Tristan comes up, he's like, we are going north to help our family. Do you know anyone? And the farmer's like, no, not really. So, he's like, we're going to go help to the north. So we're going to see if maybe there's a bit of kindness from this local shepherd to help them sort of resupply. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this. So I went to resupply with this shepherd and we rolled a miss. I've been rolling terribly in this journey. I actually got a 5 plus a 3, that's 8, versus an 8 and a 10. So this shepherd looks at them. I said a moment ago that when they mentioned to the shepherd that he didn't know anything about what was going on, about the rock slide. But let's just change that a little bit of a retcon. As Tristan passionately tells them about, we're going north, we're going to help people. The shepherd, who's, I'm going to say is a pretty young shepherd, begins to cry, begins to weep. And he's just sitting there crying and crying. They're like, oh, what's wrong? And he can't say anything. He can't say a word. I think I know what his problem is, but let's see if our characters can figure out what's wrong with this guy. Actually, he can't say anything. They all try, they say, buck up, you can do it, but he's weeping, he's gnashing, and then basically, Gahena, she thinks she knows a way of maybe figuring out what's wrong with this guy, because she's got some of her own elf skill. Now, right at the start, I said that basically Gahena has got 2 parts to her. She's got that of Ironland. She's married into an Ironland family. She's an elf, by the way. And so she's gaining this new sort of Ironland worldview, but at the same time, she's got her own past, her own elven past. And right now, she knows of an elf trick that might be able to help them out. So the farm boy is just crying and weeping and crying and weeping. And so she leans in and says, and she makes some eye contact and he's sobbing, he can barely speak. And she looks him in the eye and says, "Can I help you?" The boy crying and weeping, but as he looks at her eyes, Gehenna's trying to be as sincere as possible. And the boy responds with a nod. So what Gahena does is she reaches out, and he's just like crying, there's like snot going, and she actually wipes a bit of that snot from out under his nose. Now the divination says that we need a drop of his blood to make this thing work, but I think the snot will do. It's appropriately gross. She takes the snot and she walks over, and let's say that she begins to face west, sort of southwest-ish. She looks out, and in her imagination she can see over these rolling hills into the woods, the wild woods. She can see through the trees. She can see through the glens and the hidden grottos and groves, and finally, in her mind's eye, she can see the place that she was born, under a big old weeping willow tree. She can almost see the night of her birth, the stars in the sky, the fireflies dancing around. And as she holds that image in her mind, she takes from her pocket something that she didn't think that she would need again. She almost left it behind in the wildwood, considering what had happened. But she takes out her runes, her old elven runes. While her mind is fixed on the place of her birth, she lets the snot and the mucus rub over the runes. Oops. And then, with that, she holds her hand out. All the others are standing around looking at what's going on. There's nothing going on. She's not like chanting or anything. She's not doing anything weird, but just watching her. And because this is all kind of working, they all feel uneasy. They know this is something elven. They don't know how they know, but it's almost like the whisper that this is something different starts emanating in everyone around them's mind. Even the shepherd, but the shepherd's kind of... So she holds out her hand with her birthplace fixed in her mind, the mucus covering the runes. She then drops and lets them fall. And she looks. So +2 heart, it is a strong hit. So, as she looks at the runes, the weird elven shapes that are carved onto these bones, she then looks up at the boy in his eyes. And as she looks at the shepherd, and as she thinks about the runes, she sees a person, someone about the same age as this shepherd, someone that doesn't look a lot like this shepherd. And she looks again at the bone, she looks at other sides of it, the mucus has now moved across it, and she says, someone you care about's up there, someone important, not family, but someone you love nonetheless. The farm boy just sits there and just starts to break down even more sobs, more crying. She moves across the runes and has another look. They're somehow tied to this accident. Something's happened to them there. They're in trouble, aren't they? The boy looks and nods in just absolute despair. I mean, that's pretty obvious that must have been what was going on. She turns again and says, the two of you have looked out for each other for a long time. And they went north. Try and make a big windfall to help with this pass. Maybe, as well as maybe invest, whether it's their strength or their money, but to put into this pass, and then in return, maybe become comfortable. You and they. At this point, the shepherd has stopped nodding, but just stares at the ground with a lost look. But now they are lost. Now they are gone. And that's why you're out here. You're tending the sheep because this is the only way you can make money at the moment. Do you have anything? Do you have any food? The boy dejectedly just shakes his head. They look around, they look at each other, and in the end it's Tristan who basically says, we've got to give them something. So kind of from their collective stores, but it's going to come out of our overall supply. This is basically the failed resupply roll from before. We're now down to 2. But he takes out the supply and he gives it to the shepherd boy, who just basically takes this little ration of food and holds it close to himself. Gahena bends down and leans in close And he says, boy, you go north to do good. You go north to do right. Do we go with your blessing? Do they go with his blessing? Basically what I'm trying to do right now is just secure a little bit of advantage. We have had a rubbish set of rolls over the last little while. But maybe if, you know, he gives the blessing, there'll be a little bit of a boost to how they're feeling as they move forward. So secure advantage with heart. Yeah, okay. The boy looks up and for the first time in a while, he stares Gahena in the eyes and says, you go with my blessing. Well, that's nice, a bit of momentum, but we are really low on supplies right now. So, I don't know, I guess we make camp and hope for the best. It's not going to look good. We have to roll against our supply, which is only 2. Oh, this could be bad. So the group make camp, but it's a miss. Look, just to save time, I'm going to say that it is cold that night, bitterly cold. They manage to rug down as best they can, but ultimately it's primarily their spirits that are hit. Already this quest is flagging. But the next day they keep going. They wake up and they continue their journey. I don't know if it's the blessing of the farm boy, but the next day is nice and clear. They make good progress. And they keep moving forward at a good clip. As they move forwards, they find that ultimately travel is going better than they thought. I'm going to imagine that as they make their way through these rolling hills, it is becoming increasingly rugged. And but there is some trails through here that go north. Remember that these are where traders are going sort of before they have to veer around Raven Rest hills and mountains. But at the moment it's going pretty well, mainly because in order to, I'm going to say, make this pass, they've even had to dam up a few rivers around the place, and so they're actually making a pretty good headway along dry riverbeds. They try to resupply, so we're back up to 4, and I think we might, they have a rest that night. They make camp, we'll see if they can get up the next morning and finish the rest of this journey then. Compared to our supply, they make camp. As they camp, they sort of begin to discuss what their plans are as they move ahead. They start saying, well, we're almost there. When we get there, I have an idea, says Tristan. How about we work as a team? We're all traveling here together. We're all individuals on this quest, but you know what? We're really going to be much more effective if we work together as a team. And a few of the others around the place, they sort of start going, oh, maybe, start grumbling and groaning. Gehenna's off to the side. She's an elf. I'm going to say that there's a few ladies in this group, but you know, it's pretty male dominated. And so she's off to the side, just sort of eyeing this off. But she likes this way as Tristan is speaking. And I'm going to say the rest of the group more or less kind of go, oh yeah, maybe. And Tristan's all like, oh, come on guys, you know this is the right thing to do. But as they also turn in, he stays by the fire, stoking it, make sure that everyone's nice and warm and keep their spirit up. And I'm going to say Gahena goes over to talk with him a little bit. They get talking and he's quite a cheerful chap. Again, he's quite impressed by the fact that she stood up in front of everybody. But after a little conversation, she then sort of wants to ask him, why are you doing this? Why are you heading north to help? So she's gathering information and she gets some. Tristan looks at her and he knows that she's an elf, and all the different prejudices that fired through from her community just bounce in in his brain. But in the end, he thinks all that was pretty silly anyway, so he's willing to talk to her. Look, this is silly, but ultimately, I'm an artisan. I make pots for a living, and it's quite an important job. You got to understand. Like pots is what makes our little world go around. At least it helps us to carry our world around. You see. And I've always wanted to go out there. But you know, if I push myself too much, my lungs aren't too good. And everyone's always saying, no, stay here, it's important what you do. You make a damn good pot, Tristan. I don't know. I want to go out there. I want to see the world. And It might be only Raven's Rest, okay? But already I've travelled further this journey than I ever have before. That's incredible. We're almost there. We're able to go and do good, and in doing good we can go out and push back the unknown and travel to new places. Gahena looks back at him. You know, new places aren't always marvellous. Can you blame me for wanting to find out? So in that moment, you know, they're sort of coming to understand each other. Gahena, I think, kind of likes this guy. For the first time, this is someone who actually seems to be trying to do good. There's very few of those people she's actually met in quite a long time. Not romantic, just purely someone trying to do the right thing. And that's really what she hasn't encountered. So in this moment, and we've only got one bond forged here, is there a little bit of a connection made there? Is there a kind of is this a moment of bonding? I think Tristan's pretty susceptible to this kind of thing, so even though we haven't gone through any massive hardships just yet, I think we can push it here. They look at each other, and a word's not really passed between them, but in the end Tristan blurts out, I don't really know you, and maybe this is a really bad mistake, but when we go north, let's work together, okay? Let's try and help together. We surely must be better at this together than apart. Okay, so where you go, let me go as well. And I'll do my best to help you, you do your best to help me, and this should work out. And who knows, maybe this is the beginning of a great partnership. We could explore the world together. What do you say? How about you and I do this together? Gahena looks at Tristan. Gahena looks at Zahita. And Zanita's just lying by the fire, chin on her paws. She looks up, and she's actually eyeing off this Tristan guy. She doesn't quite know if she should leave him alone or if she should eat this little delectable treat. With a slight giggle, Gahena looks at Tristan and says, well, we'll see. And of course that's enough for Tristan, and the two of them obviously turn in for the night, ready to start walking the next morning. So we might have a bond there, we might not. We'll see if we're able to actually help each other out when we go to this camp place. We're not going to swear another oath for that. We're just going to see if they can help each other out. And if they do, this will be marked as a bond. The morning arrives, and they begin the march again. It's their final march in theory. And it's a bit rough going. As they get going, it is a little bit tougher than normal. Maybe the weather is beginning to turn against them from the previous day. It's a bit cloudier, a bit windier, occasionally threatens a bit of rain, a little spit here and there. But you know, they keep going, they push through, they have to clamber up a few rocks. We're now coming up to this sort of like embankment. And they've seen for a little while on the horizon these two little sets of hills. Nothing huge, they're not big mountain ranges, but it's clearly an element of the landscape. And as they approach, they begin to make out that these two hills come together, and there seems to be some sort of rock formation there. They start weaving through some more sort of lowland hill type things. There's a few forests they have to get through first, but soon they begin to realize they're reaching their destination. There's a few signs that there's been sort of humans working here. A hut here or there, some supplies have been left behind. But as they arrive, what is the reach the destination situation? They get closer. They actually see someone else coming the other way, and when this other person makes eye contact, they're like, oh thank goodness, come. And so this person actually leads them the rest of the way to the accident site. So as they approach this place, what kind of location is it? So they actually find, as they approach, that they come up some hills, they come up through some little ledges. There's a bit of a path, but that path is getting a bit washed out from maybe some rains recently. So, you know, it's a bit hard to scramble up. And then finally they come sort of over this ridge, and they totally don't expect it. Because when they finally reach up, there's this huge, not huge, but large cliff wall in front of them. And as they look though, this cliff wall, Gahena was picturing this big long ridge of rock, but actually it's quite small. It's smaller than she imagined. This little ridge line where the two hills kind of meet, and you can see this rock escarpment sort of like blocking off between this side and that side. But she finds the whole thing has indeed sort of half collapsed down. You might think that this is what was intended, but actually no, the whole thing has fallen. It's clearly wrecked some of the scaffolding that was being used to help build this little pass through the hill. But again, it's very small, it's all very narrow. More than that, as she looks around, she was expecting to find like teams of people here, scouring the place, trying to get people out. But as she looks around, she sees only like 1 or 2 small huts, only a handful of people. This was no huge project. This was essentially a small group of maybe ex-miners or something like that, thinking they could just easily knock through here, just a small team, we can do this. Trying to get through this pass, and it just hasn't gone well. She approaches, I guess, the foreman of this camp. Tristan, of course, is the first one to make contact. And he's like, oh, we're here to help. Oh, this is horrible, this is tragic. But these people and myself, we will do anything we need to in order to help you. This foreman, we're going to say, is an old, weather-worn woman, because why not? And at the moment, she is feeling quite greedy. This foreman's all like, oh, what are you doing here? Are you expecting payment for this? I mean, we're trying to get this through, and we're on a shoestring budget as is. We can't pay you. Why would you want to do that? There can be no profit for this. Okay, so already Gahena and the team are a bit confused. No, we're here to help because people have died here. Like, we're trying to help, right? But this foreman's not hearing of it. She's like, oh, you're trying to you see this as investment, don't you? So we're quickly gathering the point of view that this was a small team, a small investment that was hoping that they could get huge rewards by opening up this pass, maybe setting up a toll or something. As they talked to more of the people, over time they discovered that was the intention. It wasn't just to put a pass through here so the trade happened north. These specific people wanted to set up a little checkpoint, you pay a toll, you can get through there. That was the intention. Basically, they dug too greedily, they dug too deep. And now this whole rock thing has collapsed on them. Okay, so that's the situation that we're in. But who's around? Who's stuck? What's going on? Look, we'll find out more about this situation here. We'll find out who this foreman is, why they're so greedy. But there's one thing Gahena would like to check. She looks around and she sees this sort of wilderness, rough rocks and rough hills to the left and the right. It would be pretty hard to get over that. There is this rocky pass here. It has collapsed. It has caused some destruction. But as she looks around, does she notice a certain something? Something that the Ironlands are famous for? 50-50? She looks around. And as she looks up on this wall, up on this sort of wall of rock, the only thing dividing between this southern side and the northern hinterlands, the rocks that have collapsed. But as she looks towards the top of this little cliff face, she sees something. You wouldn't notice it at first, but when you spot it, you would never forget it because it's too familiar to anyone living in the Ironlands, Ironlander or elf. These things are all over the place. It is a giant iron monolith. And it appears that these excavators, these workers moving to the north, as they dug, they have uncovered this ancient and possibly sacred, magical, tropical, whatever, part of the landscape. All right, we'll leave it there. So next time we'll try and figure out, well, what's happening at this camp? What can they do to help? What can Gahena do? Will the relationship between her and Tristan become actually a good partnership? And we've finally uncovered our first iron monolith in the Ironlands. These things are, I feel they're bad news, but we don't know. We don't know really what they are, and we'll need to roll to find out. But thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again later. Good night.